All right, you glorious bastard. Let's cut the crap and dive headfirst into that clusterfuck that was UFC 282. This shit was a roller coaster, man. Main event ends in a goddamn draw.
hmm
More bonus checks than a casino floor. And a teenager fighting like he was born in the octagon. Strap in, because this is going to be wild.
It was a chaotic night in Vegas, for sure. The kind of night where you just grab a beer and hold on tight.
So December 10th, 2022 T-Mobile Arena. The place is packed with lunatics like us, ready to see Jiri Prochazka and Glover Teixeira tear each other apart in a rematch for the light heavyweight championship. These guys had an absolute war back at UFC 275, and everyone was ready for round two.
Yeah, that first fight was insane. Prochaska pulled off a submission in the 5th round, but both guys were left looking like they'd gone through a meat grinder. It was a fight of the year contender, no question.
So the rematch was set, the hype was real, and then Prochazka blows out his shoulder, needs surgery, vacates the title. What a fucking buzzkill.
It threw a wrench in everything. Glover Teixeira was even offered a replacement fight against Magomed Ankalaev. But he's not about to jump into a title fight on short notice. Smart move. Gotta respect that.
Damn straight. So what happened? Did they just scrap the whole damn thing?
Now, they bumped up the co-main event, Ankalaev versus former champ Jan Bushovic, and that became the title fight for the vacant belt.
All right, so new matchup, same high stakes. What went down?
Well, that's where things get really fucking weird. The fight goes all 5 rounds, both guys beat the hell out of each other, and it's a split draw.
A draw in a title fight. Are you shitting me?
Judges scored it 48, 47, 46, 48, and 47, 47. So yeah, no new champ crown, just a whole lot of confusion and pissed off fans.
What a goddamn mess.
Yeah.
Seriously, what the fuck were those judges watching?
It was a close fight, but even a draw in a championship bout feels like a cop-out.
It's like the judges were too scared to make a decision, so they just threw their hands up and said, fuck it.
It definitely left a bad taste in everyone's mouths. But hey, at least the UFC made it rain bonus checks to make up for it.
Wait, seriously, how many bonuses are we talking about? Did they just empty the vault?
11 fighters walked away with an extra 50 grand. That's a new UFC record for most bonuses in a single event.
Holy shit. Sounds like Dana White was feeling guilty about that bullshit main event.
Yeah.
But you know what? It worked. A shitload of bonuses means a shitload of crazy fights, right?
Oh, absolutely. Dricus du Plessis and Darren Till went to war in the fight of the night.
Yeah, I saw the highlights. Those dudes are trying to decapitate each other. What a bloodbath.
And then you had performance of the night bonuses raining down like confetti, Santiago Ponzinibbio, Ilya Topuria, Raul Rosas Jr., Jairzinho Rosenstruck, Edvin Shabazian, Chris Curtis, Billy Quarantillo, TJ Brown, and Cameron Simon all got an extra payday.
Damn, talk about a bonus bonanza. But let's talk about this Raul Rosas Jr. kid. 18 years old, submitting dudes in the UFC. This kid is fucking insane.
Absolutely. He choked out Jay Perrin in the first round with a face crank. And he did it like it was nothing.
18 years old and pulling off face cranks in the UFC.
Yeah.
That's some next level shit.
This kid is a phenom, no doubt about it. He's the youngest fighter to ever win a UFC fight, and he's already making a statement.
So we got a draw in the main event that left everyone scratching their heads. A record-breaking bonanza. And a teenager who's fighting like a seasoned veteran.
Yeah.
This card was all over the place, man.
It was a wild one, that's for sure. The kind of night that reminds you why we love this goddamn sport.
Okay, so let's rewind for a second and take a closer look at that shit show of a main event. Baracevic and Ankalaev beat the hell out of each other for 5 rounds, and then the judges just shrug. What the hell happened there?
It was a close fight, no doubt. Baracevic came out strong, landing those heavy leg kicks and keeping Ankalaev at bay.
Yeah, I remember thinking Baracevic was going to coast to a decision. But then Ankalaev started to come alive, right?
Exactly. In the later rounds, he started to take Bochovich down and land some serious ground and pound. By the 5th round, Bochovich was pretty banged up. Those leg kicks were taking their toll.
So how the fuck did they score it a draw? It seemed like Ankalaev did enough to win.
It was a tough one to call, man. Those first 3 rounds were close as hell, you could argue, either way. Ankalaev probably took the 4th and 5th. But even those weren't dominant performances.
So the judges were just too chicken shit to pick a winner. What a crock of shit.
It was a frustrating result for both fighters and for the fans. A lot of people, myself included, thought Ankalaev deserved the nod, but hey, that's MMA judging for you.
So no new champ, and the light heavyweight division is left in limbo. What a fucking mess.
It definitely makes things interesting for the future of the division, that's for sure.
Okay, let's move on to some of the other fights on this crazy-ass card. We got to talk about Dricus du Plessis versus Darren Till war. Everyone's been talking about that one. What made it so damn good?
Man, that fight was a goddamn brawl from the opening bell. Both guys were swinging for the fences, and neither one was willing to take a step back.
So a proper slugfest, huh? The kind of fight that gets your blood pumping.
Oh yeah, definitely not for the faint of heart. Duplessis was landing some heavy shots early, but Till's a tough motherfucker. He ate those punches and kept coming forward.
That dude's got a chin made of granite.
Ugh.
Duplessis eventually got the submission in the third, right?
Caught Till with a face crank out of nowhere. It was slick as hell, and it showed that Duplessis is a legitimate threat in the middleweight division.
Yeah, that was a hell of a performance. I think Duplessis is going to be a problem for a lot of guys at 185. Okay, let's get back to the young gun, Raul Rosas Jr., 18 years old and submitting dudes in the UFC. It's mind-blowing. What can you tell us about this kid?
He was hyped up coming into the UFC. He dominated the amateur scene, and everyone was waiting to see what he could do on the big stage. And let me tell you, he did not disappoint.
I mean, a first-round submission is impressive as hell, but a face crank? That's some advanced shit. Most guys twice his age haven't mastered that.
It was a statement win. Rosas showed that he's got the skills and the composure to compete with the best in the world, even at such a young age.
It's scary to think he's only 18. This kid's got a bright future, that's for sure.
He really does. He's already got the technique and the fight IQ, and he's only going to get better with experience.
Yeah, if he keeps this up, he could be a champion someday.
The talent is definitely there. It'll be interesting to see how the UFC handles him, though. They need to bring him along slowly, find him the right opponents, but he's already proven that he can handle the pressure.
Okay, so we've got a controversial draw in the main event, a record number of bonuses, and a teenager making history. This card was pure chaos.
It was a wild night of fights. You never knew what was going to happen next.
All right, we're going to take a quick break to grab another beer, but we'll be right back to break down the rest of this crazy-ass card.
All right, let's talk about some of the other savages who earned their bonus checks on this crazy card. Jairzinho Rozenstruik. That dude knocked out Chris Stockhouse in 23 seconds flat.
Dude, that knockout was brutal. Rozenstruik always comes in swinging for the fences.
He's like a walking knockout machine. One punch and it's nighty-night.
Dalkados didn't even know what hit him. It doesn't get much more decisive than that.
That's Rozenstruik's style, man. He ends fights quickly and violently.
All right, let's talk about Edmen Shahbazyan. He bounced back from a rough patch with a TKO win over Dalcha Lungiambula in the second round.
Yeah, Shahbazyan needed that win. He'd been on a skid, so it was good to see him get back on track.
He showed some real grit in that fight. He's still got potential in the middleweight division, but he needs to string some wins together.
Definitely. Consistency is key in this sport.
Okay. Chris Curtis? That dude knocked out Joaquin Buckley in the second round with a highlight reel finish.
Yeah, that was a nasty knockout. Curtis caught Buckley with a counter right hook that sent him straight to dreamland.
Buckley was out cold before he hit the canvas. Brutal. Curtis is proving to be a real force at middleweight.
He's got that slick boxing and some serious power in his hands. He's a dangerous dude.
All right, let's dive into the prelims. Billy Quarantillo, that crazy bastard, got a TKO win over Alexander Hernandez in the second round.
That was a back-and-forth war, man. Quarantillo just keeps coming forward, throwing punches and bunches.
The dude's a brawler. He doesn't care about defense. He just wants to break his opponent's face.
Hernandez is a tough opponent, but Quarantillo just overwhelmed him with that relentless pressure.
All right, what about TJ Brown? He choked out Eric Silva in the third round with an arm triangle.
Brown showed some solid grappling skills in that fight. He had to work for that submission, but he eventually got the job done.
Sometimes you got to grind it out, man. Not every fight is going to be a highlight reel knockout.
Exactly. A win's a win in this sport.
And last but not least, we have Cameron Simon, another young gun making waves. He scored a TKO win over Steven Kozlow in the third round.
This kid is only 22, but he's already showing a lot of promise.
He's got some sharp striking and a slick ground game. He's a well-rounded fighter with a bright future.
Definitely one to keep an eye on. He's got the potential to make some serious noise in the flyweight division.
Okay, so we've got a stacked card with a bunch of crazy finishes, a record number of bonuses, and a couple of teenagers making history. It sounds like UAC 282 was one hell of a night.
It was a night full of surprises and excitement. You never knew what was going to happen next.
But let's get back to that bullshit draw in the main event.
Yeah.
What the fuck happens next in the light heavyweight division? It's a complete mess.
With no champion, the division is wide open. It's like the Wild West out there.
So who are the top contenders now? Is Glover Teixeira still in the mix?
He's still a top contender, no doubt. He's got the experience, and he's proven he can beat anyone on any given night.
But Father Time is undefeated. He's got to be getting up there in age.
True, but he's still a dangerous fighter. I wouldn't count him out just yet.
What about Ankalaev? He got robbed of the title in that draw. Does he get another shot?
He deserves another shot, for sure. He was undefeated going into that fight, and he arguably won.
But a draw is a draw. It's not like he can just demand a title shot.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. But I think the UFC will give him another shot sooner rather than later.
And what about Bishacevic? He's a former champ. Does he get thrown back into the title picture?
He's definitely still in the mix. He's a tough, durable fighter with a lot of power.
He looked a bit rusty in that fight against Ankalaev, though.
He hadn't fought in almost a year, so that's understandable. But I think he can still compete at the top of the division.
So we've got a bunch of contenders, no champion, and a lot of questions. This is going to be interesting to watch unfold.
The light heavyweight division is a goddamn powder keg right now. It's going to be a wild ride.
All right, let's get back to some of the other fighters on this card. What about Raul Rosas Jr.? What's next for this 18-year-old phenom?
The UFC has to be careful with this kid. They don't want to push him too fast and risk burning him out.
Yeah, he's still a pup. He's got plenty of time to develop.
But at the same time, he's already proven he can hang with the big dogs.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
They need to find him opponents who are challenging but not too overwhelming.
Exactly. It's going to be fascinating to see how they match him up in his next fight.
Okay, what about Dricus du Plessis? He looked like a beast in his win over Darren Till. Is he a title contender now?
He's on his way, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That win over Till was a statement.
Till's a tough motherfucker, and du Plessis just demolished him.
He's got a well-rounded game, and he can finish fights. I think he's ready for a step up in competition.
So a top 5 opponent next. Someone like Whitaker or Cannonier.
Yeah, I think so. A win over a top 5 guy would put him right in the title mix.
All right, what about Ilia Topuria? He's on a roll, and he's looking like a future champion. Who do you want to see him fight next?
He needs a step up in competition for sure. Maybe someone in the top 10 like Calvin Kattar or Arnold Allen.
Those would be some banger fights.
Yeah.
Topuria's striking is so crisp, and his ground game is so dangerous.
He's the real deal, man. He's got all the tools to be a champion.
Okay, we've talked about the main event, the title picture, and some of the other key fighters on the card. Any other thoughts on this crazy-ass night of fights?
It was just a wild night of fights. So much action, so many surprises. It was one of those cards that you'll remember for a long time.
Yeah, it was definitely one for the books. We had a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
controversy, excitement, and a glimpse into the future of the sport.
It was a wild ride, that's for sure.
You know what's crazy to me? The sheer depth of talent in the UFC right now is insane. It's like every weight class is stacked with killers.
It's a golden age for the sport, man. You've got young guns like Rosas and Simon coming in and shaking things up. And then you've got veterans like Teixeira and Bojorkovic still holding their own at the top. It's insane.
It's like a goddamn arms race. Everyone's pushing each other to get better.
Yeah.
You snooze, you lose in this game.
And it's not just American fighters anymore. You've got guys from all over the world coming in and bringing their own unique styles. It's making the sport more diverse and exciting than ever before.
It's global domination, baby. The UFC is taking over the world one ass kicking at a time. But let's talk about that elephant in the room, the judging shit show in the main event. Do you think the UFC needs to overhaul their judging system?
Judging is always going to be subjective, man. It's a tough job, and these guys are under a lot of pressure. But a draw in a title fight, that just leaves everyone feeling cheated.
It's like those judges were sipping on too much tequila during the fight. They couldn't even tell their ass from their elbow.
I think the UFC needs to look at some options. Maybe more judges, better training, or even open scoring. Something needs to change because controversial decisions like that just hurt the legitimacy of the sport.
It's bullshit for the fighters who put their bodies on the line. They deserve a clear winner, not some wishy-washy draw that leaves everyone pissed off.
Exactly. It's a black eye for the sport.
All right, we've talked about the fights, the judging debacle, and the future of the sport. Any final thoughts on UFC 282 before we wrap this shit up?
It was a night that had everything. Knockout submissions, controversy, and a glimpse into the future of the sport. It was a wild ride, and it reminded us why we love this crazy-ass sport.
It was a goddamn spectacle, that's for sure. A night that proved the UFC is the best damn show on the planet.
No doubt about it.
All right, folks, that's it for our deep dive into the mayhem of UFC 282. We'll be back next week to break down another night of fights and bullshit. Until then, stay savage and keep your fists up.